What a wonderful intro. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to Lung Cancer Canada's 13th annual Evening of Hope. My name is Laura Floyd, and I'm going to be your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. This event is part of Lung Cancer Canada's mission to increase public awareness of lung cancer, as well as support and advocate for persons with lived lung cancer experience. Lung Cancer Canada also provides educational resources and supports research to increase access and improve quality of life and survival outcomes across the country. Now, none of this is possible without your donations. Lung Cancer Canada is a not-for-profit charitable organization. And a special thank you needs to go out tonight to the sponsors for the Evening of Hope. As always, a diverse range of sponsors, from major pharmaceutical companies to companies that major in pharmaceuticals. We have Roche, Bayer, Bristol Myers Squibb, AstraZeneca, Janssen, Merck, and Pfizer, all of whom contributed to this evening. We also have a special series, something unique to this year's Evening of Hope. We have in-person events taking place in Edmonton, hosted by Tim Mons, in Calgary, hosted by Emmy Bossio, and in Toronto, hosted by Bev Moyer. And remember, if you get any noise complaints, you're hosting Movember parties. Lung cancer has been in the news lately. There were the recent release of the Canadian Cancer Statistics, or as I like to call them, the Just How Charming Can Mary Ann Bradley Be? The answer, of course, is 110%. She is so lovely, she defies the laws of mathematics. Now, this year, lung cancer was #1 in a number of categories. We were #1 in, it's unfortunately #1 as the most diagnosed cancer and the leading cause of cancer deaths, but also #1 in a really encouraging category. We had the fastest decline in mortality rates. Screening programs, systemic therapies, and new targeted therapies are all changing every aspect of lung cancer care in this country. And of course, Lung Cancer Awareness Month is this November, and it's the perfect time to not only celebrate the progress from our collective efforts, but also to recommit to working together to build on this momentum. And that really is what the Evening of Hope is all about. Now, like a lot of lung cancer patients, I have had a complicated relationship with hope. 3 years ago, when the doctor came in with that sad look upon his face, I really, really hoped that it wasn't cancer. I hoped that somebody had put their coffee cup down on my scans and that they'd left maybe a tumor-shaped stain on my CT. And every time my phone buzzes, part of me hopes that it's going to be for that Google alert that I have set up for Cure for All Cancers. All joking aside, there are certainly times when hope feels really hard. And maybe some of the people attending tonight or watching this recording later on are going through those times. But here's the beautiful thing about hope. Hope is contagious. Like laughter or the chicken pox, just one person can spread hope to countless others. And over the next hour, we are going to share in the gift of hope from a number of speakers. We're going to hear from the President of Lung Cancer Canada, Dr. Stephanie Snow, who will speak to the organization's programs, activities, and successes in 2023. Our keynote speaker, Dan Wanzer, is a familiar name to many of us in the lung cancer community, and he and Dr. Paul Wheatley-Price have a special message for us tonight as well. And of course, we are going to hear from a care partner, Vincent Ong, and a patient story from Laura Beatty. Now, as the speakers are presenting, please feel free to use the Q&A box to put any questions that you might have, and we'll take those questions at the end of each presentation. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's very first speaker. Dr. Stephanie Snow is a staff medical oncologist at the QE2 Hospital in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and a professor at Dalhousie University treating thoracic and GI malignancies. In addition to her clinical practice, Dr. Snow has a strong interest in medical education and is vice chair at the Royal College Medical Oncology Examination Board. Dr. Snow is passionate about patient advocacy, serving as the current president of Lung Cancer Canada and sitting on the medical advisory committees of several other patient advocacy groups in colorectal and gastric cancer. Dr. Snow, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you so much, excuse me, for that introduction, Laura. I apologize in advance to everybody. I am recovering from a chest infection, so hopefully I won't cough too much during this actual presentation. It's great to see the familiar names popping up in the attendees on the Zoom, and I wish I could be there in person at one of our three coming together for Evening of Hope in Canada, because this is a really nice year in that we have been able to come back together. And part of sharing hope and being supportive is that ability to be together as a group and to actually have that in-person contact. Lung Cancer Canada has had a great year, and a lot of that has been due to partnerships. We are a small organization, and this is a challenging economic time that we're living through, but we have been able to broaden our services that we've been able to offer to those living with lung cancer, those who love them, and also furthering our other mandates with research and advocacy just by doing those great partnerships. This year, we really started coming back together in person, and actually it was last November during last 2022's Lung Cancer Awareness Month that we had our first back in-person patient summit, which was in Montreal. And this year we had a number of great in-person summits coast to coast from Vancouver, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, Edmonton, and there's plans for continuing Toronto, in the Montérégie, Winnipeg, Niagara, and Halifax, Vancouver again, and Sudbury for next year. We have also recognized, though, that the need for support remains so huge. So our Airways of Hope, which provides that direct support for our patients and our participants with lung cancer, has grown to include a full network of social workers now. And really a special thanks to those who participated in the Give a Breath 5K, primarily organized by Tim Mons, because their support is what makes our Airways of Hope possible. We've also expanded our peer-to-peer support, and now are very pleased to be offering support specifically directed at caregivers. So that's another great area of support and hope that we've been able to further on. Kayla's Angel Fund continues to help, and that's so important, again, in these difficult economic times, helping to pay for things like parking passes and other essential services to get patients where they need to get the care they need with a little less stress. As Laura mentioned, this has been an exciting time for lung cancer in general. And as lung cancer treaters in Canada, our plate is starting to overflow. We're starting to see programs becoming accessible for screening in more and more areas throughout Canada. And hopefully this will translate to more patients being identified with curable lung cancer before they have symptoms. And also we've seen a huge amount of data come out over the past year about how we can increase cure rates by using immunotherapies now in the curative intent setting, in many cases, even before surgery is given, to improve the chances for a successful surgery. This, of course, puts more stress on our healthcare system, so we remain very strong advocates. There's been a lot of direct advocacy to government and healthcare policy makers in many different provinces, again, coast to coast, from Nova Scotia through to British Columbia. And our medical advisory board has been very busy making sure that there is no health technology assessment for an indication in lung cancer in Canada, that does not have a support written by our lung cancer advisory group to promote the funding for that actual treatment. In all, we've also been very excited this past year to see a lot of growth with our research. We do great work already with our Jeffrey Ogram Research Memorial Research Award and different partnerships with the Beatrice Hunter Cancer Research Institute and the Badner Family Fund. But this year we launched the first Lung Ambition Alliance and AstraZeneca partnership to support $100,000 for lung cancer research projects looking specifically at improving outcomes for lung cancer risks other than tobacco use, and hopefully improving our information for screening in the future, especially for those who do not have a tobacco history, and also looking at outcomes in women with lung cancer. We do know that this is a very important cancer among women, and it is the #1 cancer cause of death in women. So really focusing on research in this area and how their experience and the disease may be different in the female population is really important. Finally, another partnership we've become involved with, the Lung Health Foundation, Pfizer, and the Quebec Lung Association, is looking at a national quality improvement grant in order to support the work for those who are trying to make this experience and the care that we are providing better. So overall, it's been a great year at Lung Cancer Canada. We're very much looking forward to the next year, and really happy, of course, to come back together one-on-one. And so I hope everybody has a great evening of hope. I wish I was there with you in person.
Thank you so much, Dr. Snow, for that update. I don't know, I think we're just collating any questions that we might have for you, but I actually do have a question for you. And this is something that I think comes up a lot when you're a patient and you're first embarking on this journey. You run into the stigma around lung cancer, and you run into the issues of inequitable funding of lung cancer compared to other cancers. And I'm wondering if you could just comment on that and elaborate some more on some of the work that Lung Cancer Canada's done and able to address some of this.
Absolutely. So stigma impacts so many different levels of the lung cancer experience, from that of a patient who should not be having to be asked the wrong question of, did you smoke cigarettes, but rather the question of, how can I help you, or how are you doing today? And it goes right through to many healthcare practitioners, where there can be stigma and bias. And we definitely see that relative to the impact that lung cancer has in terms of the number of diagnoses and the number of morbidity and mortality that come along with that, it is grossly underfunded. This goes very, very deep. It's not just a matter that there's different organizations that aren't interested in funding lung cancer. This has been a historical thing. And when you think about lung cancer researchers and their mentors, if they've had a long history of doing research in a certain area and there's lots of grants available for certain other cancers, then that's often where they will tend to gravitate. So we've really focused on providing that support specifically for our up and coming researchers here in Canada to be able to start that legacy. And then hopefully, as their labs grow and they have more and more master's and PhD students, then we'll see more and more successful grants from general cancer funds, and really continuing to fight that stigma with things like don't ask the wrong question campaign, but really to get it out there that this is so important and needs to be addressed.
Thank you again, Dr. Snow. And that, I think, really speaks to the momentum that has been building and all of the work that's coming from the patient community, the researchers, with care providers, and the care partners. So thank you again for that wonderful presentation. Our second presentation this evening comes from Dan Wanzer. Dan was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer in July 2006 and has since become an advocate for change in policy, treatment availability, and survivorship. After Dan's cancer progressed to stage 4 in 2011, he has lobbied Congress, he has helped organize lung cancer walks, the Lung Force Expo conference, and been on numerous patient advisory councils. He is a beacon of positivity in the community, and he continues to share his own trials and successes through his blog, Dan's Cancer Chronicles, and gives hope to others living with this disease. Now, Dan couldn't actually be with us live tonight. He has a very special event. He is celebrating his daughter's wedding. But Lung Cancer Canada was able to arrange a special recording just for the Evening of Hope, where he highlights his story and how he continues to live life beyond his diagnosis. So here he is in conversation with Dr. Paul Wheatley Price, Dan Wanzer.
Good evening and welcome. My name's Paul Wheatley Price. I'm a medical oncologist here in Ottawa, and this is a special interview today. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined from Oregon by Dan Wanser. Welcome, Dan, to the Evening of Hope and to our podcast.
Thank you, Paul.
Dan, I mean, we're just delighted that you could be part of Evening of Hope. Maybe for people viewing and listening, you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I live with my wife, who is the love of my life, and we have 6 grandchildren and a great granddaughter on the way in February.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
And is
thank
your
you.
whole family close to you in Portland?
No, they're scattered around the country, around the U.S. Yeah, well, but they're pretty scattered. Let's just keep it simple.
Now, you were diagnosed with lung cancer some time ago, Dan. Could you maybe share a brief sort of overview of your lung cancer story?
Starting off, I was diagnosed after I had broken ribs. I had no symptoms of lung cancer. I broke some ribs, got an x-ray, and it showed a spot on my lung, which was shocking as it is for any of us. But I was a non-smoking vegetarian who worked out at the gym all the time, and it just didn't make any sense. And at the time, the internet was not as mature as it is now. The only thing I could find online with statistics telling me that I was going to die, and probably within 6 to 9 months. So that's how it began, and I had chemo and surgery and more chemo, and uh, made it 4.5 years before anything came back up again on a CAT scan. When I was re-diagnosed with stage 4, and since then I've been on. This is my fourth time around, and fourth course of chemo. I've been through immunotherapy, some targeted therapies, radiation. I've been in a wheelchair a couple of times, um, and a bunch of other procedures that would just fill up the time too. But lots has happened in that 7 years, and I've been in 3 clinical trials as well.
So when you were first diagnosed, you said the information you could find was that you might have 6 to 9 months to live. So just share for people now how long ago that was.
That was 17 years and 3 months ago.
So I think there's probably in the Evening of Hope now. If they've not, everyone start clapping. Um,
Don't believe everything you read, and especially statistics that are hopelessly behind.
and statistics, can give people a guide to help with some planning and some precautions maybe, but nobody is a statistic. The reputation that you have in the lung cancer community, certainly when I was introduced to your story, is somebody who is very encouraging. The way that you have taken your lung cancer diagnosis and developed that, and to all of the myriad of activities that you've been involved with, people have found this inspiring and encouraging. How did you get started on that? How did that journey begin?
How it started was I needed to tell family and friends about this diagnosis, and I thought, every time you look someone in the eye and you tell them I have lung cancer, they look back at you like you're going to die soon. And I just couldn't handle the thought of going through that over and over with family and friends. That would be overwhelming. So I chose to write a group email to them, telling them about my health. And I kept writing those uh, emails. And then I started throwing in my optimism and throwing in some humor along the way too. And they started sending these emails to people I didn't even know, friends of friends, and saying, "I hope you don't mind. I sent this on to this person because I thought they could benefit from your from your attitude." And so I looked at the internet and thought maybe I should start. Well, I'm a very private person to start with. I mean, if you said, "How are you?" I would have said, "Great, how are you?" and done everything to avoid you asking any further questions. And to go from that, I decided I need to start one of these things they called a blog, which was pretty new in 2006. So that's what I did. That's how I got started. Is I started my blog and have kept it going for this entire time with every email from the first one on.
Now, you used a phrase with me earlier, Dan, just before we started recording this. I've written it down: to survive and to live. I love that. Could you expand on where that came from and what you mean by that?
It all comes with the attitude part too. Is the goal is not just to not die. That's a pitiful goal. That's not very motivating for me. I want to live and have a full life. And what I've learned how to do is to live on two tracks at the same time. The one track is I'm going to die, and that could happen, within months or a year. And the other is that I'm going to continue living. And I plan for both at the same time. You have to plan for both because you don't know which one it's going to be. If you just plan that you're going to die, well, you're not going to have a life. So you plan to live, and you have all these goals and all these things you want to do. And maybe you'll get to them and maybe you won't, but your life will be a success because you're doing what you want to do for as long as you can do it.
Have you got highlights that you lived for because you have lived with this disease for 17 years?
Yes, yes. Well, the number one highlight is love, and that's the love of my life. She has been amazing, and I would walk through fire for her. And I've had more time with her, and I've had more time with my family, and so that's an important piece of it. I've gotten to achieve things I didn't expect to, like writing my book, Second Wind. Oh, by the way, I should flash it up here and also say one more thing,
Yeah.
which is an announcement that for the next 3 days, November 13th to the 16th, that book is available free on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
So, and I do that every year in November at some point for Lung Cancer Awareness Month. So that's an achievement I never expected to do. And I just finished my first novel, which has taken me 4 years to write. That's another thing that I've achieved, which has been terrific. And then some of it is just living, like getting out there on the golf course and doing my yoga and meditating and daily walks with Genevieve. I'd rather be back in the gym, but COVID has kind of slowed me out of that for a while. Beyond Genevieve. One of those is really important to me is that we have a local lung cancer survivor group, and we meet by Zoom every month. And I just got a text from one of those people this morning, and that's not uncommon to get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the online support groups, and then there's the other family and friends too.
And I guess people listening to this should know that in Canada, those support groups exist in person, online, not everywhere. We can certainly do better, but and you could reach out to the Lung Cancer Canada office after this to find out what might be available in your area. Maybe just in closing, imagine that people who are listening to the podcast or are attending the Evening of Hope have just recently been diagnosed with lung cancer, or they're a caregiver of someone who's recently been diagnosed. And with someone with your sort of immense experience in all different facets of this, what would be your words to them?
I would say, don't be hard on yourself. You've got a big job in front of you right now. And the number one job is you take care of yourself. And you do that in every way that you can think of. And then you keep trying to imagine more ways to take care of yourself. And then when you don't do that well at taking care of yourself, you give yourself permission to do that. It's okay because you can't be perfect at it. It'll just lead you to beat up on yourself if you do. So just do the best you can to take care of yourself in every way you can. The advocacy comes later when you've got time. I think I was in it 7 or 8 years before I went to my first Longevity Hope Summit and got excited about doing more things because I saw all these other people. Up until then, I'd been thinking, hey, I've got a full-time job and I've got lung cancer. I got my hands full. I can't take on anything else. And then I saw all these other people doing things and decided, well, maybe I can. So every now and then I'd slip in another one and see how it was going.
But number one, take care of yourself and don't expect to be perfect at it, and allow yourself to not be perfect at it. Is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the most important part.
Wonderful advice. Dan, I can't thank you enough for joining us north of the 49th parallel for our Lung Cancer Canada Evening of Hope and our Lung Cancer Voices podcast. It's just been a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much.
It's been a real pleasure, Paul. Thank you. And wishing everyone the best.
Oh, what a what a remarkable story. Thank you again to Dan and Dr. Paul Wheatley Price for preparing that presentation for us. Certainly some messages that I think I needed to hear tonight, and maybe some of you did as well. The reminder that the book is called Second Wind, Thriving with Cancer. And I believe there's a question about whether that's only available for free in the US accounts. So we're going to look into that and we'll have an answer back, because it is something I think Dan would very much want the Canadian community to also have access to it. So we'll see if we can confirm that that's also available for free in Canada from the 13th to the 15th of November. But let's move on to our next speaker while we find some more answers. We're going to hear from a care partner, Vincent Ong. Vincent Ong grew up in Richmond Hill, Ontario, but he's worked and studied all over the world, including Canada, the US, France, Germany, and China. His most recent work focuses on the wine industry in Canada. Vincent and his wife, Vanessa, are currently raising identical twin 10-year-old boys in Thornhill, Ontario, and they benefit from having fantastic grandparents that live close by and enjoy spending time with their grandchildren. In their spare time, the Ong family enjoys playing sports, reading, movies, trying new foods locally and while traveling. And they're looking forward to a family trip to Japan in December and continuing to expand their travel experiences. So Vincent, welcome to the Evening of Hope.
Thank you so much. So hi, everyone. Vincent Ong here. Very grateful to join everyone here for this Evening of Hope. And I'm hoping to share my personal experiences as a son and as a care partner with my father, who was recently this past year diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And I'm hoping at least sharing my experience could either help somebody, or, to be quite honest, selfishly, it's been a great exercise for me just in reflection and learning. To give a little bit of context, my dad, he was born at the end of World War II in Malaysia, and my mom a few years thereafter in Hong Kong. And they later married and immigrated to Canada in the 70s. And, they have a lot of the, key themes of an immigrant story. There was a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work, and it gave me and my older sister an opportunity. We grew up in Richmond Hill, Ontario, here in Canada. It was a very comfortable, supportive life and lots of opportunity. But what I thought would inform the way I wanted to talk about my experiences today actually came from a question my mom asked me recently. And I remember we were in the hospital and my mom's like, Vincent, why did so many bad things happen to your father? Why is he so unlucky? And when I thought about this question and I was thinking this could help inform my experience today, I wanted to talk through, these big health events that my dad went through. But what they really led to in a lot of cases for me personally was a lot of what I would call reflections of love. And so when I think back, his big first health event, this was almost 20 years ago, and I just started working coming out of university, and I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and I missed my mom's call. And then later I finally checked my voicemail, and she's like, Vincent, get to the hospital as soon as you can. Something happened to your father. I get to the hospital and rush there and then find out he suffered a massive stroke. And I remember at the time, it was very surprising. I was, a little devastated. And, it was a massive stroke, but he did a lot of rehabilitation. From where he was to where he got to was amazing in terms of his speech, his physical. And we had stayed in that hospital for almost a year in long-term care with a lot of support from myself, my sister, and most importantly, my mom. And at the time, I remember really reflecting, on one past experience with my dad. I remember I was in high school. I was really unsure if I could get into the university I wanted to go to, study what I wanted to do. And my dad took me aside, and my dad's a guy who's very shy, very quiet, not too many words. And he just said to me, it's okay. Wherever you go, it doesn't matter. It's okay. You do your best. And honestly, the compassion just from that enabled me and felt me like I was unleashed, and really gave me a lot of love that I needed at that moment. Another big one that we went through was about 5 years ago. My dad was actually diagnosed with prostate cancer. And at this point in time, I remember being a super, very pragmatic, solutions-oriented kind of person. I was doing every, piece of research, speaking to as many experts as possible to figure out the best decision. And I quickly learned that it was not my decision. What I was there to do was to support him and really help him figure out the best decision for himself. And, similarly, when this was all happening, I remember a key moment of reflection. And this was about 10 years ago. I had moved my family, my wife, who's a physiotherapist at a hospital here in a neuro unit. And she had given up or paused her career at the time to support me. And then we just had twins, and they were 2 months old. And I moved everyone to pursue my passion of the wine industry. And we moved to Napa Valley, California. And my parents volunteered to come support us for a month or two. And my dad, I wouldn't say he's a home cook, but he probably knew like one dish growing up, which was this curry chicken from Malaysia. And this one dish, he'd maybe cook once in a while, if that. And we're now in California. And after a few days, my dad ends up walking to the local Mexican grocery store. And every day he would cook dinner for us. And just that reflection of love. And again, he didn't say anything, but just that act over that time, I couldn't believe it and how important it was to our family. Then in the first year of COVID, my dad suffered another stroke and heart attack. And I remember my mom and I, who were the only ones there at the time. And, thank God the nurses were so amazing. They found a way for us to be there and be supportive with him. And it was kind of just another health event that we were able to push through. And same thing, I had a reflection of love at the time. And I remember giving my dad my first business card, and he kept it in his wallet like it was like a picture of his grandchildren. And then I went to Queen's University, and I never bought him any merchandise. And, a little while later, I see him wearing a Queen's University hat that he gets himself, and he just wears proudly. And then the latest health event this past year was his diagnosis of stage 4 lung cancer, where we were actually initially at the hospital to do a biopsy for his prostate cancer. He was coughing and wheezing. And we then went to the ER. We found out he had pleural effusion, which was a bunch of liquid between his lung and chest cavity, 3 liters of it. And then they did imaging, and then they eventually found out he had the cancer. And the first prognosis we were given was, your dad has a few months to live every day as if it's your last day. And we were completely devastated, right? We were in the hospital. We thought this was about a biopsy for his prostate cancer, which seemed to be at stage 1 and was not very advanced. And then we get this, sort of bomb dropped on us. And what was interesting to me is now more of a reflection of love now in respect to that experience. We did more tests, and I actually decided a few months ago I stopped working so that I could be with my parents and support during this time. And I've been to every doctor's appointment. And the last one we went to, we were doing a blood test. And my dad just pulls me aside and he starts breaking down and crying. And he tells me just one sentence. I'm very lucky to have you. And I, obviously lost for words. And later we do the test and we find out essentially my dad has a certain mutation of lung cancer, which enabled targeted chemo. And when we look at the prognosis for that, it's 4 to 5 times longer. And as was said earlier in the video before, it's just a statistic. At least it guides us to think we have more time, which we have. And that was just a tremendous moment of hope that we experienced. So I wanted to share those experiences of these health events, which really led a lot to reflection of love, to be quite honest, served as a foundation for me to support my father. And if I were to sum up, where I'm kind of at in this journey, as it is a journey and it will continue, I really learned how much to listen, to really follow the lead of the person that is going through this, and be patient and as supportive as best as you can. And most importantly, as a care partner too, be extremely kind and compassionate to yourself and to other care partners. And I think this will really enable you and be real strong foundational enablers for you in this journey with you and the person you care about that's going through this. So I hope my experience helped some people. And again, it was helpful for me to reflect on. And that's my care partner story. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing, Vincent. I do have a question for you. You've relayed, like you said, quite a number of health events for your dad. And one thing that comes up a lot when someone gets a cancer diagnosis is they talk about the cancer roller coaster and just how the emotions and the day-to-day can change so much. And I'm curious if you found that all of your previous experiences with your dad's health helped prepare you for that roller coaster, if you were already on it and had all those coping strategies in place, or was there something different about this diagnosis that still maybe threw you a little bit?
It's a great question in the context of, I think the other experiences definitely helped us where, at least as a family unit, we've had similar conversations. What I would say is different in this context was just, the time initially with the diagnosis or the prognosis of a few months. We were really devastated by that. But what I've come to learn, I think the previous speakers said in their video, mindfulness was really helpful where, we were just trying to be in the moment, not judge it for what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is what it is. And not in a defeating way, just much more so that you're not continuing to build on, just that sort of big negative feeling, but again, not judging and just being there. And I found that, quite frankly, it's even led to us being able to do other things together to help us during those times, like meditation together. And quite frankly, just to spend a lot of time together. It could be as simple as you're just there. You're just sitting there. You don't need to say anything. And I just found it very, very helpful. I actually got this piece of advice more recently and through this experience that I didn't quite do as well before, which is, again, just really follow the lead of the person that's going through this, because they're the ones really going through it. It's okay to be vulnerable and say you don't know what to do. Just follow their lead.
I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you again so much, Vincent. And one final question for you. We are coming into the holiday season. Do you have any wine recommendations? Those of us who might be looking for some gifts for the next month.
Yeah, I've kind of been all over the world in key wine regions, but I'm a huge supporter of the Canadian wine region, whether it's in Niagara, Prince Edward County, or even BC, burgeoning regions like Nova Scotia and Quebec. I say try your best to support local. There's beautiful sparklings that I think you can get from Niagara that can sort of toast the start of your holiday season and or at least go into New Year's.
Thank you so much, Vincent. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot there. That is extra great advice too. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Last but certainly not least, we're going to hear a patient story from Laura Beattie, who's 52 years old from Ajax, Ontario, worked as a legal assistant for more than 25 years in Toronto, and for the past 2 years has worked the midnight shift as a production assembly worker at General Motors, manufacturing trucks in Oshawa, Ontario. She's also helped coordinate fundraisers, volunteered with United Way, and is the proud mother to 4 children: James, 30, Alicia, who's 19, Lauren, 13, and Lucian, who is 12. Wow. She enjoys art, basketball, boxing, cooking, movies, puzzles, reading, all at the same time, spending time outdoors and visiting with her friends and family. And most important to her are her commitment to family and faith. Is Laura with us here tonight? Very much looking forward to hearing her story. We're just getting
Can
set
we
up
just
there.
test that we can hear us from here in Toronto? Can you give me a thumbs up, Laura?
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. Firstly, I would like to talk with you about hope and what hope means to me, why we're here tonight. Hope is a blessing. It is expecting a good outcome, something better than our current situation. When we give up hope, we no longer concern ourselves with consequence or future. Every action or intention has a reward or consequence, and in being hopeful, we remain in a positive state of mind. Faith and hope heal us when struggling, when finding it difficult to cope with our illness. Don't ever despair, because there's always hope if you believe. Hold on to hope, have patience in your bad days, and be most grateful in your good days, as every day matters. After diagnosis, life seems so much more precious than before. We are so much more than our illness, cancer. We are not only statistics or just percentages. We are resilient, we are strong, we are warriors. Living this life with hope for the future without cancer and facing our fears together. Advocate for yourself. Do your research for treatment options, choices that will allow you to have the best possible outcome. Live your life to the fullest. Become outspoken, assertive even, and educate yourself and others about lung cancer. Be responsible for your own journey. Do not allow anyone to tell you what you can or cannot do. Impossible is nothing. I have not led the most easiest life. I have endured very many challenges with having had pre-existing illness. Prior to my lung cancer diagnosis, I have had multiple pulmonary emboli, as well as chronic autoimmune disorder, blood clotting issues. I have been followed by respirologists and hematology and delivered 4 healthy children, 2 in high risk, over 30 years. I have worked very hard throughout my life to be the best role model for my children. I have taught them to always help those in need, to never give up in the face of adversity, and to always have hope for a better future. These things I remind myself of daily. On December 24, 2020, I was diagnosed with COVID. I attended for 6 months with a pulmonary rehabilitation specialist at the hospital to get through the worst of my breathing complications. It seemed to be improving until, again, I was feeling symptoms of breathlessness in September of 2022. My respirologist had been sending me for follow-up scans every 3 months, and then at my last scan, it showed 3 nodes in my left upper lung. It was supposed to be my last scan. I thought I was getting better, but again, one of those nodes had been growing. And I was then booked for a PET scan at Sunnybrook Hospital in October. And by December 2022, I had another scan from which my doctor had confirmed the imaging was possibly cancer. And as the node was now triple in size, large enough to now biopsy, I was still early stages. So that January 19, 2023, I had a CT-guided needle lung biopsy. And less than 2 weeks later, on June 30th, 2023, which was my mother's birthday, I found out I had been positive for non-small cell left upper lobe lung adenocarcinoma. A referral was made to the thoracic surgeon. And after 3 meetings over March and April, I was referred to radiation oncology. As I was not a candidate for surgery, risks of blood clot were too great. The surgeon advised against it. So this was devastating, to say the least. Knowing my best possible outcome was having had surgery and right away. So getting hematology opinions and second opinion from surgeons had caused a significant delay. It was now going on 4 months by the time I had had my first appointment with Dr. Louie. It was March 11, Dr. Louie at Sunnybrook Odette Cancer Center. By May 18th, I was booked for my first radiation staging. I attended at that appointment, not informed that I would have to wear a full shoulder face immobilization mask fitted by warm plastic type mesh material being molded to my face. I have anxiety and claustrophobia along with breathing issues. This mask made it most difficult to breathe properly. During this appointment, I was told I could not do the radiation without it. So this was another thing that I had to go through and get through, as my best possible outlook that it would only be 30 minutes, the longest, most uncomfortable 30 minutes. Although I then was COVID positive again. I was supposed to start my radiation on May 30th, but on May 26th, I was hospitalized for 1 week with what they called minor COVID, although I was on Paxlovid for a week and the symptoms started to improve. So on June 5th, I started radiation, 4 sessions over 2 weeks. It got worse before it got better. I was told it would. I had extreme anxiety and fatigue. I was financially suffering as I could not work for the past 6 months. So nobody thought I would return to my work. And although disability did not pay enough to support my family, my coverage would run out by November 29 if I didn't return to my job. So taking this in mind, I kept in mind, I'm going to take 1 month to recover. I had a plan. I took a 1-week vacation in Muskoka with my family, paid for by Nankind, which is a wonderful organization in North York for women and mothers that have cancer and families that provides support to your children, counseling and the families, funding for food delivered to your home. When I was going through the radiation, I did not have much energy to cook. Taking care of art activities for your kids, and giving them counseling in ways that are fun and fill in that time that you don't always have to spend as you're exhausted and in bed. A lot of the time through radiation was different for everyone, but it did do that to me. So my family in that time really enjoyed that time away. As something I could never have done without that help. So I really appreciated that. Coming home to see the doctors again, I began the process of getting their approval to return to work. I was adamant I would go back to work. After a 2-week graduated work plan, they agreed I would start working 4 hours a day for the first week, then 6 hours the next week, then finally 8 hours, full work week, at the hottest time of the year to return to a manufacturing automotive plant in August. The summer temperatures are difficult for most without health issues. But I endured, I overcame, and I have successfully returned to my previous full-time position. I miss my work friends and my life pre-cancer diagnosis. Getting back to work gave me a renewed strength and faith in my abilities, in the future, that I can do whatever I put my mind to do so, and hope for a better outcome that gave me that determination I had needed. I have not had a very good 3-month follow-up scan since. There are multiple new nodes in both my right and left lung and my liver that are going to be monitored until my next scan in December. I did have a brain scan, which was clear, which is great news. I have to be and remain hopeful that I will get through whatever my future scans will show, needing to remain positive and stay in the now and not worry too much about tomorrow. Ever what I cannot control. What I do remain is in control of my present mindset and going to work every day, trying my best to take care of my family and myself and to spend the best time with them as possible. I appreciate every moment and opportunity to make good memories with them that will last for a lifetime. In closing, I just want to say, I am not defined by my cancer diagnosis. I am a survivor living with cancer, along with a new family of many others I have met along the way in the same situation. We are collectively members of this horrible disease, but together we can also most definitively make a difference. Thank you for inviting me here tonight to take part in this very important event and for listening to my story of hope. And thank you for the support provided by the Lung Cancer Canada and everyone that's been along with me on my journey. I appreciate it.
Laura, thank you so much for your courage and your vulnerability and sharing that story, your wisdom, your thoughtfulness, everything that you said tonight. I know it's going to resonate with so many people, and truly everyone here wishes you the best in your cancer journey. Thank you again so much for sharing your story. And thank you to all of the speakers, the sponsors, and everyone in attendance for another successful evening of hope. Those of you who were able to donate, know that your contributions directly support patients and others with lived cancer experience through things like the Airways of Hope program that provides individual and group support in healthcare navigation. There's awareness and education programs like the Lung Cancer Voices podcast. And I believe there was recently one with Dan Wanzer as well that you may want to check out. There's webinars, there's patient summits. There's also the advocacy activities and research grants that Lung Cancer Canada carries out. And be sure to mark your calendars for June 1st, the Give a Breath 5K, the premier fundraising event in support of Canada's lung cancer community. Now it's time to close off this evening's celebration of survivorship and hope. And what better way to do so than by recognizing a member of our community, Terry Morey, who is celebrating an incredible milestone tonight, 10 years with stage 4 lung cancer. I know our friends in Calgary have come together to help Terry celebrate that tonight. And I know that there are many more of us in this community who are celebrating our own milestones. milestones that were previously unheard of. And if anything signifies hope and the progress that we've made, it's that. So on behalf of Lung Cancer Canada, congratulations to everyone. Thank you all for being here. And on behalf of myself, I really, really hope we can all get together again next year as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.